So I'm just going to get into it because I know we've not got a huge amount of time today, but I think the
How
one.
long do you want? Jesus Christ.
But one of don't say that because I could keep going and going and going and you'd regret it. But I've each film from the kind of Rise of the Foot Soldier franchise, they feel quite different from the last. It feels like they're tapping into different kind of genre tropes and they're kind of trying
Yeah.
something different with each passing film. So I just wanted to ask how you think Retribution differs from the others. What do you think makes this one stand out from the series?
Well, it's funny you picking up on that because as we all know, every film's different. They're
Mm,
all very, very different, purposely.
mm,
Because you can't, I know I'm repeating myself here, but you can't make 7 films about people snorting cocaine in Range Rovers. It worked for a little bit, and it served its purpose, but they've grown over time.
mm,
And Retribution is the biggest, most explosive of the series.
mm.
Each time we've upped the ante, we've pushed the envelope, we tried to make it bigger and better, and try to feed the appetite of the fans. You know, um, but yeah, this is the biggest out of the lot so far.
Yeah. And I think over the course of the kind of films, I think Pat Tate has established himself as the real kind of Don, the kind of leading man, I suppose, of the franchise. Of all the characters in this kind of series, because obviously at the beginning it was a much more kind of ensemble kind of piece. Why do you think Pat Tate is the character that has kind of been given the kind of keys to it to some extent?
It's a good question. It's I don't know, but you remember there was a huge gap. It was 10 years after the original to the Pat Tate story, and we always said, we should have done this sooner.
Mm,
But Andy always said to me, he said, in the first film, you popped off of that film. There was
mm,
what you did on screen. That character was larger than life. You physically, everything about you were made to be taken off to do further stuff. And it was a discussion. And then obviously we did number three, and it went really well. It
mm,
worked. And then we did number four, in Marbella, and that really worked. And then we all sort of sat around, and they sat around, Carnaby and Signature, and said, we've got something that needs feeding, basically. Um, and just here we are now.
yeah.
And, obviously there was three of us at the beginning, but then if you look how the film has metamorphosized over the years, you've now got Andy as Fisher and Nick Niven as Greener, who
Mm,
have sort of filled the shoes of Tucker and Craig Rolfe, who were there in the earlier films.
mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Pat has been they've sort of changed him into this fella who is still sort of rooted in reality, but he's doing stuff that is, I suppose, I don't know, sort of actiony leading man type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say this film is full on kind of action hero stuff, isn't it, from
Yeah,
Pat Tate?
yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
when you step into his shoes now, there must be such a sense of familiarity when you kind of take on this kind of role and you walk on set. Is that kind of reflected in just your kind of comfortability now when you're kind of on these kind of projects? When you kind of walk onto set, that sense of regularity of playing this role on kind of numerous occasions, is it almost quite seamless, just kind of getting back into his head, back into his outfit, and getting back into the project?
it is, I'll be honest with you. I do enjoy playing it, I'm not going to lie. Especially the way the latter films have gone.
Mm,
Um, they're much more mature movies now. They're not as scatty and as crazy and as wild as and druggy and as swearing as
mm,
they've become more refined.
mm.
Especially Vengeance and this. The more mainstream film. You only got to look at the sales the last one I've done at the Cannes Film Festival and the film markets. They're being bought by bigger uh you know when you go to the markets, the territories that buy the films, where before it was quite colloquial. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These all British independent films, you're lucky to get overseas sales.
Mm,
Whereas now, the last two Foot Soldiers are selling well
mm.
abroad, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is a kind of new maturity to it. I mean, was that that must have been essential for you to get involved? Because I mean, I remember I spoke to you about Muscle all those years ago, which was such a complex character and gave you so much to work with. And I remember you sort of saying that, you really wanted to take on projects that challenged you. So it must have been so important to you now that when you do more Rise of the Foot Soldiers, that they are feeling like they are more refined, more mature in the way they're kind of executed.
Well, I don't want to sound, too, you know, because people go, oh, okay, what's he talking about? But I did go out of my way in Vengeance to somehow tone it down a touch and give him a touch of humanity and just a little bit, so people can identify and go, oh, you know what? Oh, well, not just T-1000. Do you know what I mean? Going through, shooting, blasting, beating everyone up. I just wanted to give him a little bit of an Achilles heel, just a little bit.
Yeah.
A bit more interesting, that's all. And it worked.
Yeah.
And there's no harm in giving characters depth, I think,
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, look, he is violent. He's on a kind of
Yeah.
path of vengeance, and it's a destructive one. But he shows signs of kind of loyalty, of empathy. I
Yeah.
mean, is it important? Obviously, you mentioned about kind of bringing that depth into a role and to kind of flesh him out. But is that quite important for you to get into his heads? Because they're much more relatable traits than going around just beating the shit
Oh,
out of everyone.
massively, massively. And I've really tried to get that. I tried to bring what I've done in Villain, Muscle, Violent Man. I'm playing those manly characters, but also making them, give them a little bit of heart and a bit more human. Doesn't hurt. It makes, as I said, I'm repeating myself, but it just makes them a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. And I was talking about the sense of kind of familiarity and of playing a role on a kind of regular basis. Of course, you've been in the soap world, so you've kind of had that experience of kind of playing someone over kind of multiple years or kind of multiple series, whatever you want to call it. But I guess with this, is it quite nice because you can dip in and out more easily? You're not doing this kind of as a kind of sort of like 5 days a week for across the course of like 2 years. This you can kind of, it's a sort of a couple of months here, a couple of months there. Is it quite nice to be able to still have your break from Foot Soldier as well?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, when I decided I wanted to be an actor, I was always obsessed with films. I wanted to be an actor who worked in films.
Mm.
And the nice thing I find, the comforting thing about doing a movie is it's an intense time for a short amount of time. There's an end coming quite quick. So you can really give it your all. Sometimes we're involved on TV and it's forever. It's draining, goes on and on and on. But no, to dip in and out is bang on.
I'm interested to know because obviously a very, very origin of the kind of Rise of the Foot Soldier stories was the kind of the was that Pat Tate alongside the other two were murdered. And I'm
Yeah.
interested, but when you're playing him now, do you still play him, even though you've taken so much cinematic kind of license and really taken a character down loads of different kind of paths? Is that knowledge of his ultimate fate, does that still play on your mind at all? Because when you play him, he plays himself as completely infallible, like we said, an action hero.
Yeah.
But in real life, he was murdered. So does that come into your head at all when you're kind of bringing him to life?
No, it doesn't, because it's film and there's that thing of theatrical license and you can get away with anything on film, and it's moved on so much now, especially with the fans, and we're making movies, we're making entertainment at the end of the day, and there's always that little bit of rooted in reality truth that within each story, but then the rest is exaggerated, elevated, call it what you want, to make it a movie. And they've worked. They've really worked.
Yeah. I wanted to know, because obviously this is all set in Ibiza. A trip to Ibiza is a bit of a rite of passage for kind of young teenagers, people in their early 20s from the UK. Did you ever do it? Did you ever have a weekend in Ibiza when you're in your youth?
I've done everything.
Yeah.
It was lovely. It was lovely being there, because twice, separate occasions, filming and working. Anywhere being abroad filming is lovely, but it's such a lovely place to work. You got your down days and you can wander off and do what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? Now I'm older. It's a different thing. It's a bit of manchego, some ham on, and a bottle of Ribera del Duero.
Yeah, it's amazing how different places look when you go there a bit later in life than when you go when you actually get to experience culture now. Not back then. But I mean, obviously, it's hard to say because the every you know it's this series. I'm sure it kind of constantly surprises us. But do you reckon there might be more Rise of the Foot Soldiers from here on? Because it is a series that fans aren't tiring of, and it does seem to keep going. And they're finding these new stories in different parts of the world. I just want you. Would you? I mean, I'm not saying if I'm not going to ask if there's been conversations yet, but are you hoping or anticipating that there might be conversations about any
You
further?
know what? I always say, who knows? Nobody knows anything in this game. Things change
Mm,
dramatically. So many things have to come into play. You know, it's so many things. You know, people, what they're doing, the business side of things, the money side of things, the success side of things. It's not just a, everything needs to be weighed up.
mm.
Simple as that.
I mean,
And,
it's hot.
and it's not down to me. It's the bigger voices above. Do you know what I mean? Who call the shots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it was down to the fans, it would be because I mean, it's remarkable the kind of fan base this franchise has kind of garnered over all the years. I'm
Well,
interested to know across your kind of career, would you say this is what you get recognised for most now in the street, or
yeah,
is
of course. Yeah,
Mm.
without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah,
And I'm proud of it. I really am. The films have done great business. Um, I've enjoyed working on them. I've enjoyed working with all my mates on them. Um, I've just got nothing but incredible memories from laughing, from constantly laughing and enjoying everything. And at
right.
the same time, all of us caring. Andy really cares. Nick cares. We're all film maniacs. We love movies. We
Mm.
try to make it. We're very serious about what we do, from the writing to the execution of it, filming. Um, and we work well together, all of us. That's the good thing.
And talking of franchises, I was reading an article about Villain 2. Is
Yeah.
that in the works? Are you excited to be back in that world? And is that always nice as an actor when you kind of you play a role, you kind of enjoy your experience? It must be quite lovely when you kind of get that call to say, oh, we might be doing a bit more of this.
Well, we start on Thursday.
Oh well.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I'm just prepping and getting prepared and learning lines and what I normally do, getting ready for the part. It's a fantastic script. Jason Mazza producing. Um, yeah, I'm excited to dip back into the world of villain because it was a great film. It
Mm.
went down very well. Number one on Netflix for 8 consecutive days. Critics' Choice in the New York Times. Incredible reviews with all the big, serious, outlets. Really took to the film. So yeah, it's lovely to be jumping in that again.
Of all the characters you've played in your career, which one would you most like to do to step into the shoes of again that you haven't had the opportunity to?
Oh God, what a question! Yeah, I've got to say I enjoyed Muscle.
Mm.
I mean, that playing that role was like it was something very cathartic about playing a madman.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I don't think with the physicality. I'm just talking about just a nutter.
Yeah.
That psycho, weird, but serious. Yeah, I enjoyed Muscle a lot. I really did. Um, just be given the chance to play characters like that is, for an actor is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to work with Gerard again one day? Because he's a
Oh, I'm
great.
a massive fan. Yeah, yeah, massive fan. Yeah.
And I think we've discussed Cliffhanger before because I think one of the times I've interviewed you, it was around the time of its 30th anniversary. I know it got another kind of digital re-release again last year. Such a kind of classic. But I'm just thinking about it today because I'm at my parents' house today because they're watching my 1-year-old downstairs. And I said I was speaking to Craig Fairbrass today, and that's the first film they both spoke about. Yeah, no, they both went, oh, he was brilliant in Cliffhanger. It's the kind of first thing that kind of came to their mind. I'm just interested to know, do you enjoy like kind of looking back at certain career moments and projects you've made? Are you quite reflective or quite nostalgic in that, or are you an actor that
Oh,
always likes to
massively.
look forward?
No, massively.
Mm,
I think too much. That's my problem.
mm,
Um, but yeah, no, I do. Most of them things I look back with fondness.
mm,
Because I don't know where 30 years has gone. I
mm,
really don't. And I read an article the other day, on Rex Lynn, who played the main baddie, Travis. He was talking about how, out of all the jobs he's done, how endearing memories of Cliffhanger. You know, getting in a Huey helicopter, what they used in Vietnam to go to work every morning, flying through the clouds to get to the highest point, you know, to go to work. But I got nothing but beautiful, incredible memories of Cliffhanger. It was just such a big deal for me at the time, even though I'm under no illusion it was a small role in a massive film. But it was just the confidence it gave me and the drive it reinvigorated back in me to, you know, always take chances, keep chasing the dream. Simple as that.
Yes, an amazing project to get at that stage in your career, isn't it? To kind of elevate and propel you forwards.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, psychologically, it's a big deal. Obviously, after that, I went through a period where it was really difficult because that's an actor's life, you know. But you just got to keep grounded, keep grafting, keep moving forward, keep trying to work and do what you can.
Yeah,
yeah.
So just finally, because I know I'm just almost out of time now, but I mean, I saw a quote with you speaking about Retribution. You said, "I think this is as close as you're going to get to playing Bond." Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I said to my wife, I hope people don't fucking read that and think that was a serious quote.
No,
throwaway, laughable line. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah, no, that's how I took it.
Yeah,
But I'm interested to know, not to put you on the spot, but you know, the new film's kind of coming up soon. Who would you like to see take on the 007 role from here on?
Listen, I mean, people are going to hate. You know, you talk about this is such a subjective discussion, but listen, I'm a Connery fan. I love Sean Connery. I love everything about him, the way he talks, the way he moves, his looks, the way he fights. Second to me was Lazenby. I've always liked men in their men roles. So I was watching a thing the other night. I'm not going to bore you with this, on YouTube. Engelbert Humperdinck and Tom Jones singing a duet together. There was something about the 60s that time. There was all geezers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I look at Connery and I look at Lazenby. They were my favourites. I gravitate more towards the sort of tough and rough man.
Yeah.
Who that would be now, I really don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the names that have been popping out and what they're talking about are far removed from that type of person. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure they make the right choice. You know, they always seem to do, don't they?
Yeah. Well, you might not be.
Who is the favourite?
I think it might be Callum Turner from the last, kind of young actor. He's kind of doing a lot of American films at the moment. He's married to Dua Lipa.
And he's a sort of big Nick Moran. Is that the geezer?
Yeah. I'd never put those two together. He does look a bit like that, but he's very handsome. He'd be harking back to the very charming kind of.
I see. More Roger Moore type.
Yeah, that kind of style, I think. Yeah. But then there's been a different favourite every week, so I don't know.
Wasn't a young kid as well who's got something about him from Frankenstein? He's dark and big.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, he was mentioned. Yeah.
Oh, Jacob Elordi.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he is an Aussie.
Lazenby.
That's true. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And even if you don't get the part of Bond, just give them try and get a call. At least try and get in there as a villain. Yeah. But it's been great to speak to you as always, Craig. And best of luck with the release of this. And hopefully we'll speak when the 8th installment comes out in a few years' time.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Take care, mate. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys.
Hey you guys.
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys.
Hey, you guys.